Okay, so let's keep proceeding with this argument. Now, what we want to do is this. We want to know how to fill in these blanks so that we can know the probability, the probability of the designer given this evidence that the cosmological constant is within the life permitting range. Now, to calculate that, we need a few numbers. Okay, so the first thing he's going to do, Rhoda's going to do is, by the way, I always say like Rhoda's going to do, this is actually like, Rhoda's summarizing a lot of information from a lot of other philosophers. So anyway, okay, so probability of D times, now what's the probability of E given D? Probability of E given D is just going to be, how likely is it that the universe would be in a life permitting range given that the universe had an intelligent designer? Well, there being an intelligent designer of the universe doesn't ensure that the universe is going to be life permitting. I mean, maybe the designer of the universe just wanted a pretty universe, but no intelligent life. I mean, that's always possible. Now, Rhoda thinks if there's an intelligent being, it's decently likely that that being would want to create more beings. I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's like maybe it's an introverted intelligent designer. Who knows? So Rhoda ends up saying, well, he wants to be conservative. So he's going to say, let's just say it's 1 in a billion chance. 1 in a billion chance that this designer is going to want to have a universe that's life permitting. 1 in a billion is 1 over 10 to the 9th. So okay. That doesn't look very nice. Let's see. Probability D times 1 over 10 to the 9th. That's going to make this probability of D times 1 over 10 to the 9th. Okay? Now we have to figure out this part. We're not going to know probability of not D yet. This is going to be the prior probability of theism. Now, what's the probability that we would see the effective cosmological constant like it is, that the universe will be just right in that life-permitting range? Okay, if there were no designer. Well, given that there's no designer, we're just going to have to go with what the physicists have given us. And that's going to be 1 over 10 to the 41st. All right, so with those numbers in place, now the next thing we're going to want to do is test, okay, now what's the prior probability of theism? What is a probability of theism, or that the universe, that there's a designer, before we are confronted with this evidence? That's the prior probability. Rhoda gives us a few suggestions. But let's say it's 50-50. If it's 50-50, that would be 1/2. Okay. So that would make this number like this, 1/2 times 1 over 10 to the 9th over 1/2 times 1 over 10 to the 9th plus, now if the probability of D is 1/2, that means the probability of not D is going to be 1/2. Because that's, I mean, that's how it's going to be 50-50. Okay. Now, if you do this equation, if you put this in your calculator, you know what you're going to get? 0.9999 for a really long time. What does that mean? It means that this evidence from the cosmological constant actually makes the probability that the universe was designed, probability that there's a designer given that range, or given that that the cosmological constant is what it is, that it's within the life permitting range. That makes the probability of there's an intelligent designer in the universe 0.99999 really high. All right, so now that's pretty cool. A lot of you, I mean, some of you are really interested. Are there any good reasons to believe in God? This is, I mean, it seems really convincing, doesn't it? Now, some of you might complain. You might say, well, the probability that there's a God, that's kind of like the probability that, or an intelligent designer of the universe. 1/2, it's too high. I mean, for a lot of people, especially if you're an atheist, the idea that there's a God out there is like the idea that there's a flying spaghetti monster, you know? So something really low, okay? So now if we do it a step at a time, let's say the prior probability of theism, or that there's an intelligent designer, is 1 out of 10, okay? That would make us shift these values, okay, so that this number would not be 1 out of 10. It would be, we'd have to change these values. So this said 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. And this one would have to be now 9 out of 10. Okay? So suppose the prior probability of theism is lower. Remember we saw with the Bayes fallacy how important it is what we give the prior probabilities. Let's say the probability of theism is 1 over 10. You know what happens is this number? It's still 0.9999999. So yeah, I mean, do the calculations. If you do the calculations, you're still going to get a nearly 100% probability that there's a designer of the universe. That's kind of cool. Now, what Rhoda does in the reading, this is on that page, is how low does the prior probability of theism have to be in order to make this better, like lower? Well, even when you get the prior probability of theism is over 1 over 10 to the 26, yeah, okay, so that's going to change these numbers. But once you alter them, so that becomes 1 over 10 to the 26, so that becomes 1 over 10 to the 26, and that would be 1 minus 1 over 10 to the 26. The number you end up getting is actually still very high. I had it written down somewhere, but it's still like 0.9999999, and then you get like 0 here. So it's a little bit better. So that's really interesting. So what Bayes' theorem does is helps us see like the relations between probabilities. Now to avoid, wait, I just want to explain what was going on here when I added that 0. It means it's not 0.9999999, it's going to be 0.9999990, and then some other numbers. When you make the prior probability of there being an intelligent designer, 1 over 10 to the 26. Okay, now here's what this is kind of teaching us. Okay, if you want to resist this argument and make it so that the probability of theism, given this life-permitting range, this value for about the fine-tuning of the universe, then you're going to have to fiddle with some numbers to get this number lower, right? If you want the probability of theism, or that there's an intelligent designer, to be lower, you got to make the prior probability of theism very, very low. Another number you could fiddle with is the probability of E given D. But now 1 in a billion, though, is already really small. I mean, but you might have to see how small of a number, maybe 1 over 10 to the 20th, you know, but you'd have to really make this number much smaller to get the argument so that theism isn't confirmed that much. And that's going to take work. So why is this happening? It's because of this number, the 1 over 10 to the 41st. Because the fine-tuning information, the data, because the chances of the effective cosmological constant being within life-permitting range is so low, that's what's doing the damage. That's what's making this number so high. All right. Now, one thing about this is we want to remember that Rhoda is being generous with 1 over 10 to the 41st because he's only picking one cosmological constant, one variable, one that's fine-tuned, the cosmological constant. But there's other things that are fine-tuned, like the strength of gravity, the weak force, other physicsy things that I don't know. And notice these numbers for these fine-tuned variables and parameters, they're not coming from the philosophers, they're coming from the physicists. And then the philosophers are taking these numbers, plugging them into Bayes' theorem, and seeing what they're spitting out. And a lot of them are giving high numbers for the probability that the universe has a designer. So that's really interesting. And even if you disagree with this argument, I hope you can see the value and beauty of using Bayes' theorem to help your mathematical reasoning. And I hope you can also see like, wow, fine-tuning, it's really valuable, really cool. I've been trying to push that, but I'm going to keep trying to push it. So there's that video, and we'll have to stop now.